Welcome to the Next News Network. Between the headlines, it is officially June 10th. You're watching live. We're here on Next News on X and Trump Daily Post as well, and YouTube and Rumble and Kick. It's 4:14 Central, 5:14 Eastern in the District of Columbia. 84 degrees there. Heavy rain in the nation's capital today. 84% chance of it continuing. And we're going to kick off today's news with the latest out of Washington, as well as so many other stories we're tracking right now. We're going to be talking about what's happening in Iran, Act Blue, Democrats. We've got more on the screwworm, Bill Gates showing up in the Capitol, on Capitol Hill today. We've got the latest on that and so much more. Brian, are we ready? Yeah, I've been waiting for you to tell me, so thanks. Yeah, we don't need distractions while we're live, right? Good evening. I'm Gary Franchi, Next News Network Chief White House Correspondent, bringing you the latest White House news from the past 24 hours in partnership with our streaming partner, Trump Daily Post. Tonight, the big headline is a major promises-kept victory from President Trump. The Secure America Act is now law, fully funding ICE and Border Patrol through the rest of his term, while the administration also keeps pressure on border security, agricultural protection, and a full slate of White House activity. President Trump signed the Secure America Act today in the Oval, joined by House Speaker Mike Johnson, members of Congress, and Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. From the pool report, the president said the bill delivers support and resources to the heroes of ICE and Border Patrol so they can defend the border, protect the homeland, and keep Americans safe. The event was carried live, underscoring what the White House clearly wanted to make the defining action of the day. The White House said that the Secure America Act ends Democrat obstruction and fully funds Customs and Border Protection, ICE, and President Trump's border security agenda through his term. The measure provides $70 billion over the next 3 years for Border Patrol and ICE, including paychecks, body cameras, protective gear, uniforms, wall construction, and hardening, expanded Homeland Security investigations, more resources to identify, detain, and deport criminal illegal aliens, and upgraded technology like drones, detection devices, and increased surveillance. The White House message is direct. The bill strengthens border enforcement, fights human trafficking, and targets cartel activity after what the administration describes as 4 years of chaos under the Biden administration. Now, the broader White House message today was just as clear. The administration, they cast the signing as a final answer to the Biden-era open border disorder, noting that every single Democrat voted against the legislation while President Trump signed it and delivered long-term border funding without needing a single Democrat vote. The same White House messaging also tied the bill to continued action against the New World screwworm, the so-called Biden bug, as they're calling it, with eradication efforts in Texas continuing alongside stronger border controls meant to protect American agriculture and food supply. And according to the daily guidance, the president's schedule centered on this border security push. He began the day with executive time, signed the Secure America Act in the morning, and later held a closed-door greeting with the finalists for the Presidential 1776 Award before an evening policy meeting in the Oval Office. From a later Oval Office pool report, President Trump also touched on several additional issues. He highlighted beautification work in Washington, including the restoration at the Lincoln Memorial Fountains and Reflecting Pool, reiterated his focus on stopping drugs coming across the southern border by land, and said he plans to meet with leading artificial intelligence executives. Now, that same pool report said the president took questions on Iran and emphasized the strength of the U.S. military. In a follow-up remark that was carried in a later pool report, the president again blasted Democrats for opposing the border funding bill, saying Republicans are protecting American citizens while Democrats sided the wrong way on security. He also said he's not concerned about recent inflation numbers, calling them great, and dismissed Democrat concerns over FISA and intelligence structural changes. Looking ahead to tomorrow, the White House announced that the First Lady Melania Trump will launch Fostering the Future accounts on Thursday at the Treasury building alongside Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. The initiative expands her Fostering the Future work by creating savings and investment accounts designed to help foster youth prepare for independent financial futures. So that's the White House rundown for the last 24 hours. A major border security bill signed into law, continued administrative focus on enforcement and homeland protection, and a full day of policy activity centered on strength, order, and results. Now let's turn from the White House file to the rest of the top stories that are shaping the day. Welcome to the Next News Network. We are streaming live on Next News on X alongside our streaming partner Trump Daily Post, and also on YouTube and Rumble and Kick. So if you're following us on all platforms or not, make sure you do. So what do we got lined up today? We're going to give you the latest on Iran as Trump is signaling decision time is here. Iran, their time is running out. Act Blue, game over. That's right, they were on Capitol Hill today and certainly panicking with every single question. We also have more on the immigration executive order that President Trump just signed, as well as new information from Capitol Hill with respect to the screwworm flesh-eating parasite. So we've got news there. Also, and we've been tracking Act Blue for quite some time, ever since James O'Keefe and O'Keefe Media Group exposed them and their smurfing campaigns. And if you don't know what that is, it's when they do multiple small donations in somebody's name, and that person has no idea that those donations are occurring, and sometimes those donations last. They total into the tens of thousands, and these donors have no idea that they're being used. So they were on Capitol Hill. We're going to talk about that, and of course, what happened when Bill Gates showed up today on Capitol Hill for his deposition with respect to his relationship to Jeffrey Epstein. As you know, James Comer and the Oversight Committee, they had recently brought Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton before the committee, and now it is Bill Gates' turn. So we're going to get you all the details on that. So let's go first into our Iran story here and get you the latest. What if the real breaking story tonight's not the helicopter, not the drone, not even the strikes? What if the biggest development is that President Trump just signaled that the talking phase may be ending and the decision phase has arrived? Because, listen to the language. Just days ago, the White House was talking like a deal was close. Now President Trump is saying Iran took too long. The bully of the Middle East is finished, and they may have to pay the price. That's not open-ended diplomacy. That is a deadline with muscle behind it. And if Tehran still thinks that this president's bluffing, well, they haven't been paying attention. And here's why this matters. See, the Apache incident was not just a military headline. It exposed the truth that the battlefield never fully went quiet. Even while the Trump administration kept the door open to a serious agreement, according to President Trump, those American pilots somehow got that burning helicopter down into the sea after an Iranian drone lodged between them. And they were rescued in a first-ever operation by an unmanned sea drone. Incredible courage, incredible American capability, but politically, it changed the atmosphere. Because once you have active combat, even limited combat, every extra day of negotiation starts to look less like patience and more like risk. And that is the tension tonight. Vice President Vance says the administration still believes a strong deal is possible, one that actually ends Iran's nuclear threat for the long term. But President Trump's also making clear America's not waiting forever, not under his watch, and certainly not while Tehran keeps testing the line. And on that point, about not getting trapped by confusion and delay, let me tell you about something that's hitting millions of American families much closer to home. So pay attention to this, because if you or someone in your family is on Medicare, this directly affects your wallet. Medicare is confusing by design. The mailers, the robocalls, the fine print, the commercials, it's all built to keep you overwhelmed, so you pick a plan and never look at it again. That's the Medicare confusion industrial complex. And seniors are paying for it without even knowing. See, Chapter is simple by design. One call, one advisor. They look at your doctors, your prescriptions, your needs, and help you compare plans honestly. Some people could save as much as $1,100 a year, so do not guess. Do not let the system box you in. Call Chapter at the number you see on your screen. You can pause the video, you can write it down. 910-728-4109. Get real help from someone who actually works for you. Now back to the foreign policy story, because the same lesson applies here too. Clarity beats confusion, and President Trump is delivering clarity rather fast. See, here's the part the corporate press will try to blur out. President Trump didn't just authorize pressure, he signaled consequences. He even shared that famous West Wing clip about not responding proportionally if Americans are killed. That wasn't random. That was a message to Iran, to its proxies, and frankly to every regime in the region that thinks delay is a strategy. Add in Trump's comment that as long as he's president, major players respect him, and you can see the doctrine taking shape. Peace, if possible, strength, if necessary. And tonight that line is getting a lot brighter. Rapid Response 47 posting Trey Yanks on the phone call with the president on the two pilots that were downed in that Apache.
Yeah, guys, good morning. I just got off the phone with President Trump, and he gave Fox News some brand new details on what happened with that Apache helicopter that went down earlier this week, and provided his thinking on where things stand with the negotiation. I want to start with a story the president told me, new details about the downing of this U.S. Army Apache helicopter. President Trump tells Fox News that the Iranian drone lodged in between the two pilots in this helicopter. They were flying very low. And at that point, the drone didn't explode as it had intended to. And so these pilots were trying to take down the helicopter with the drone lodged into this gunship without it exploding. And at any moment, it could have exploded, the president told me. And he said it was on fire. There was a lot of heat inside the cockpit of this helicopter. And ultimately, these two pilots were able to take it down into the sea, where ultimately they were rescued for the first time in U.S. military history by an unmanned sea drone. Now, President Trump also talked about the U.S. strikes last night against Iranian radar systems and air defense sites. He said the Iranians had tried to rebuild during the ceasefire their defensive capabilities, but they were unable to stop these U.S. strikes overnight, and they were hammered by U.S. fighter jets. Now, interestingly, President Trump told me that he is getting close to ordering new strikes against Iranian power plants and bridges, because he says the Iranians are tapping the United States along when it comes to the negotiating process. He says the bully of the Middle East is dead. And he told me I may keep going when I asked him about a possible response to the Iranian missile fire that targeted U.S. forces in Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan overnight. The president said they had a chance to sign a deal and survive, indicating again that he may order new strikes against the Iranian regime in response to their dragging their feet at the negotiating table. Again.
So if you recall, about a month ago, President Trump had warned that bridges and power plant day would be coming. And of course, he delayed that. It looks like it's right around the corner now. So Trump's warning blunt. Iran had it shot, and now he's signaling more force may be coming. Next, Peter Ducey lays out the White House view as CENTCOM launches what they're calling proportional strikes on Iranian ports.
Good evening and welcome to Washington. I'm John Roberts in for Brett Baer. Breaking tonight, the United States is staging what it calls self-defense strikes in Iran right now. Central Command says the attacks began about an hour ago. This follows President Trump's promise to respond to the downing of an American military helicopter by an Iranian drone near the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. used one of its own naval drones to rescue the two pilots in a first-of-its-kind operation. Fox News is told that there is an investigation into whether the Iranians actually meant to bring down the chopper. All of this further strains the 2-month-long ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran. We've got Fox team coverage tonight. Jennifer Griffin has details about the amazing rescue of the pilots by the unmanned vehicle. Senior White House correspondent Peter Ducey starts us off, though, tonight. He's on the North Lawn. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, John. President Trump is inside the West Wing right now monitoring the situation as CENTCOM carries out those proportional retaliatory strikes. Iranian state media in the last couple of minutes has been reporting that explosions are being heard in ports along the Strait of Hormuz less than a day after President Trump said this about the state of negotiations.
I don't think there are any sticking points.
Just hours later, a 24-foot-long U.S. Navy water drone helped rescue a pair of American pilots downed by an Iranian aerial drone. President Trump announced the Iranians shot down one of our highly sophisticated Apache helicopters while patrolling over the Strait of Hormuz. There were 2 pilots involved. Both are safe and uninjured. Nevertheless, the United States must, of necessity, respond to this attack.
So the report underscores it. Trump still wants a deal, but Iran keeps playing games while CENTCOM answers with force. Meanwhile, Trump's broadening the message, saying peace holds because foreign leaders know he means what he says. And President Trump also sharing a clip from the TV series The West Wing on Truth Social, clearly telegraphing his intentions. The scene shows the President of the United States arguing for starting a war and declaring if one American, any American is killed, we will not respond proportionally, we will respond with total disaster. This comes while President Trump said no American military personnel were harmed during the helicopter downing by Iran. President Trump certainly sending a message here.
His code name, sir.
What is the virtue of a proportional response?
I'm sorry?
What is the virtue of a proportional response? Why is it good? They hit an airplane, so we hit a transmitter, right? That's a proportional response.
Sir, in the case of Pericles...
They hit a barracks, we hit 2 transmitters.
That's roughly it, yes, sir.
This is what we do. I mean, this is what we do.
Yes, sir. It's what we do. It's what we've always done.
Well, if it's what we do, if it's what we've always done, don't they know we're going to do it?
Sir, if you turn your attention to Pericles 1.
I have turned my attention to Pericles 1. It's 2 ammo dumps, an abandoned railroad bridge, and a Syrian intelligence agency.
Those are 4 highly rated targets, sir.
But they know we're going to do that. They know we're going to do that. Those areas have been abandoned for 3 days now. We know that from the satellite, right? We have the intelligence.
Sir.
They did that, so we did this. It's the cost of doing business. It's been factored in, right?
Mr. President.
Am I right, or am I missing something here?
No, sir, you're right, sir.
Then I ask again, what is the virtue of a proportional response?
It isn't virtuous, Mr. President. It's all there is, sir.
It is not all there is.
Sir, Admiral Fitzwallace.
Excuse me, Leo. Pardon me, Mr. President. Just what else is there?
The disproportional response. Let the word ring forth from this time and this place, gentlemen. You kill an American, any American, we don't come back with a proportional response. We come back with total disaster.
President Trump posting that on Truth Social. It makes the message clear, hit Americans, and the response won't be small. Now here's Trump putting his red line in plain English, saying exactly what would trigger a fast return to war. This from Trump Daily Post. Trump said he's done trying to be nice with the mullahs. He said Iran took too long to make a deal. Now they're going to pay the price. They're a complete and total mess, much of it. Like their Navy, Air Force doesn't even exist anymore. They've been completely defeated. Iran is all talk and no action. The bully of the Middle East is dead. It's taken too long to negotiate a deal that would have been great for them. Now they will pay the price. And here is some remarks from the Oval.
Iran. I wanted to ask you about this report that you would only restart the conflict with Iran if they killed U.S. troops. Is that your red line for ending the ceasefire?
If they killed?
U.S. troops.
What does that mean?
That you would restart the war with Iran if they killed U.S. troops.
Well, it would be a good reason. I'll be honest with you. If they killed U.S. troops, I think I would do that very quickly. Yeah, that's a very interesting question.
President Trump making it absolutely clear what that red line is. Next, Fox circles back to the battlefield and the diplomacy with new reporting on the retaliatory strikes and the growing doubt that Tehran is negotiating in good faith.
Good evening and welcome to Washington.
It would help us now to put a deadline on the table. Let's get a deadline on the table, get them agree or not to agree. If they are that sincere about truly making a deal, let's make it.
Some Trump allies say they're losing hope that the end is near.
I'm starting to feel like we're Charlie Brown and Iran is Lucy, and every time we go kick the ball. It's been taken away. We're close to a deal. We're 2 days from a deal. We're 3 days from a deal, and it's not happening. And so if I were in Vegas right now, I'd be betting against in 2 days.
President Trump's words and his actions tonight, sticking to what CENTCOM says is a proportional response to Iran, signaled that he wants a peace deal more than he wants a return to a widespread war.
So that report underscores that Trump still wants a deal, but Iran keeps playing games while CENTCOM answers with force. Meanwhile, here's Trump broadening the message, saying peace holds because foreign leaders know he means what he says.
Thank you, President. I have two questions. First of all, Turkish President Erdogan keeps threatening Israel. Do you think there is a chance of a conflict between Israel and Turkey, and will you sell F-35 to
Well, as you know, he's a very good friend of mine. And we've worked very well together. I like him a lot. I'm not supposed to say that because the press will say, oh, he likes Erdogan. No, he's a hell of a leader and a strong person, very strong person. I haven't heard that at all. If I did, I'd call him, and I think I'd make sure that things were fine. I don't think that will happen with Turkey. Not as long as I'm president, because he respects me and I respect him. But beyond that, we have a good friendship. So, we'll see.
And my second question, that's my second question. Beside peace in the Middle East, what do you wish yourself for your birthday?
For my birthday? Well, I'll go a step bigger. Peace for the world, okay? Peace for the world. Middle East, yes. Peace for the whole world, yeah.
Mr. President, there is a New Jersey Democratic congressional nominee.
So Trump's point there is simple. Strength keeps enemies in check. Next, he gets even more specific, revealing a nighttime operation, he says, hit Iran where it hurts the most. He reveals the United States has been taking millions of barrels of oil at night during the Iran blockade.
This war is over. I can say it now. Something you didn't know. Do you know we've been taking out millions of barrels of oil? Nobody knows it. You know who doesn't know about it? Iran, until right now. We took out the other night 22 ships, late at night with no lights, because they don't have any radar, because we blasted the crap out of it. We took out, that's why oil's $85 a barrel. I mean, you take a look. Remember when I did this, I said, look, the one bad thing will be we hit the best economy we've ever hit. And I said to my people, I had Scott, I had Howard, I had Pete, I had all of them. I had Todd in the room. I said, the one thing we have to do now, we had just hit the highest stock market in history, highest 401ks in history. Everything was going well. And I said, I hate to do this to you guys, but Iran's going to have a nuclear weapon very soon. We have to go and attack. So we hit them with the B-2 bombers, which took a lot of courage. It was totally successful. We buried it, very hard to get. But now we had to make the second move. And I said, the bad part is the stock market will go down by a lot based on predictions of.
So after detailing the covert oil hits, the administration is making the larger case that the pressure campaign is working. Here's the vice president saying they're close to a deal that would shut down Iran's nuclear threat for the long haul.
Right now, I feel that we are in a position to get a deal that is good for the United States economically and that really does deal with the Iranian nuclear program, not just now, not just while Donald Trump is president, but for the long term, to where my kids can say when they're adults, Iran is not going to have a nuclear weapon. That's the goal of the policy, and I think we're very close to achieving that goal. But we've still got some wood to chop, and we're going to keep doing it.
We still have some wood to chop, he says. So what does it all mean? It means the deal is no longer being framed as an endless process. It's being framed as a choice. Vice President Vance is still talking about a durable agreement that protects American families for years to come. President Trump still saying peace is possible, but at the same time, CENTCOM is striking. Trump is warning Iran that it took too long, and he's revealing the United States has already been squeezing Tehran harder than many people realize, including by taking millions of barrels of oil during the blockade. See, that's leverage, not drift. That's a commander-in-chief using diplomacy with a hammer on the table. The message now is simple. Sign the deal, end the nuclear threat, or face the consequences of defying the United States under Donald J. Trump. So this is why President Trump keeps his opponents off balance. He's not trapped in an old, failed formula where America talks softly, absorbs attacks, and hopes dictators suddenly become reasonable. He's doing what strong leadership looks like. Keep pace as the goal. Keep peace as the goal, keep force as a real option, and make America's enemies understand that time is not on their side. The left and the foreign policy establishment hate this because they never know whether to attack him for being too tough or admit that deterrence actually works when the world respects the man in the Oval Office. So now I want to hear from you. Is President Trump right to put Iran on the clock, yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments. Share this report with someone who still thinks strength doesn't matter. If you want more America First coverage every day, make sure you subscribe to the Next News Network right now. But most importantly, text the 2 words you see on your screen right there to that number, raw feed, to 844-840-4963. We're cutting out the middleman, going direct to you. We're not going to wait for YouTube to send you notifications that never arrive or just allow ourselves to drift in the algorithm, never to be found. We're going to send the messages of news directly to your phone as a text message every single night, so you have the news that you can make informed decisions on. And we're celebrating America 250 over here at Next News Network. Are you? Are you ready? Check out the Next News merch shelf below this video or at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com and find some gear, and let's party together. All right, Iran's time is up, folks. Their time is up. It looks like the attacks are moving. President Trump is not waiting for them to act. Okay, so Brian, make sure that that White House briefing, when it's published, does not have notifications enabled. Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, so we're going to move forward. We're going to go talk about what happened on Capitol Hill. So much happening today. And I'm going to go ahead and get this next video scheduled for... let's see, we'll put it on at like 6 o'clock. Okay, that should be good. Okay. All right. Act Blue, game over. Tonight, the fraud war just broke through another barrier. What started with stolen benefits, bogus claims, and identity schemes is now moving straight into the machinery of political money itself. The Trump administration has been making it clear that if a system touches taxpayer dollars, public trust, or election confidence, it's no longer off limits. And now on Capitol Hill, one of the biggest Democrat fundraising pipelines is now under the microscope. Then came the moment voters instantly understand. Question after question, answer after answer, one phrase repeated over and over. I plead the fifth. So what are they so afraid to say out loud? Well, this matters because this is no longer just a story about a hearing, a witness, or a partisan clash in Washington. This is about whether the same accountability standard now being applied to welfare fraud, healthcare fraud, immigration fraud, and identity fraud is finally being applied to political fundraising too. And that's a huge win for the America First argument that verification matters everywhere. I mean, just look at the pattern. USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins blasted out a Tuesday takedown poster showing alleged SNAP fraudsters from Louisiana, Massachusetts, Texas, and New York with amounts ranging from $1,500 to a jaw-dropping $7 million. Message sent: under President Trump, steal from the public and you will get hunted down. Now take that same fraud focus and move it into campaign donations. If foreign origin money, fake donor identities, or weakened fraud controls touch the political system, then this is not some side issue. This goes straight to election confidence, institutional trust, and whether Democrats built a money machine that nobody was supposed to question. And while we're talking about seeing big changes early before the crowd catches on, let me tell you about something that smart viewers should be watching right now. And if you can go back in time and you could buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? Of course you would. Anyone would. So why aren't you buying silver right now? The people who recognized oil early didn't just make money, they got ahead of one of the biggest economic shifts in history. And today a similar opportunity is unfolding with silver. Silver is more than a precious metal. It's a critical resource used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and the massive industrial build-out that's powering the future. That demand story matters, and that's why I want you to check out Noble Gold Investments. Go to nextnewsgold.com and learn how qualifying accounts can receive a 1/10 ounce gold coin. Don't wait while everyone else catches on later. Now back to the story, because what happened in the hearing was even worse for Democrats than the headlines suggest. See, here's the part that changes everything. The most damaging moment was not a complex compliance chart or some obscure financial rule. It was the simplicity of the optics. Congressman Jim Jordan cited committee documents saying ActBlue changed standards and was accepting more fraud, with a board member admitting up to $38 million in 2024 contributions. They showed signs of foreign origin. Then came the questions every normal American can understand. How much foreign money? How much from Russia? Did you weaken safeguards? And the answer was the same every time. And that's why these clips are exploding and implying guilt. Secretary Brooke Rollins, the Tuesday takedown, steal, snap, get busted. These 8 fraudsters thought they could steal food assistance money and get away with it. From $1,500 all the way to $7 million. Justice is served. And here are some of the individuals and their mugshots. There's Tanisha, $35,000. There's Crystal Garcia, $126,000 plus. Cody Simmons, $126,000 out of Baton Rouge. Antonio, $7 million out of Boston. Oh, and then Ashley Trevino. Okay, she could have done better probably. $2,500, but yeah, she's not too pleased. And then Kiana Lissani, whatever, from Amsterdam, New York, $1,500. And Sonia Rajpal out of Schenectady, New York. And Omar Gallegos, $44,000. Yep, they thought they could steal from us, and they just got caught. So USDA is showing what enforcement looks like when fraud gets tracked and named. Now Jim Jordan turns the same spotlight on ActBlue's CEO, asking about foreign cash, Russia, and why her legal team bailed. This from RNC Research. Check this out.
Your board chairman said ActBlue accepted up to 38 million contributions in 2024 that had the signs of foreign origin. How much fraud is too much fraud?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
How many foreign contributions did ActBlue accept?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
How much money did ActBlue accept from Russia?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Why did your entire
my Fifth Amendment rights of self-incrimination, right?
legal team quit? Your in-house legal team.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Oh, that was just the opening. After taking the fifth over possible foreign money, ActBlue CEO gets hit with something even more basic. Mary Miller asked whether the platform was told to accept donations even when a donor used a fake name.
Your company's memo states, and I quote, "If an otherwise legitimate donor uses a fake name, we would want to accept their donation," end quote. Can you confirm whether this is the advice that you give to your employees?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
So that wasn't a one-off dodge. Next, lawmakers press Regina Wallace-Jones on whether she misled Congress itself about ActBlue's fraud control.
Ms. Wallace-Jones, in 2023, I sent you this letter with 5 straightforward questions with a goal of confirming that foreign funds are not in our elections, and that ActBlue had adequate fraud prevention measures in place. You replied a month later with a 4-page letter describing your fraud prevention policies and procedures that you had in place at ActBlue. But according to the New York Times, your response to this committee may have been false and misleading. Ms. Wallace-Jones, when you signed this letter to me, did you believe that this letter was false and misleading?
On the advice of my counsel, I respectfully decline to answer this question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Ms. Wallace-Jones, before you sent this letter, did you believe, was it brought to your attention that this letter that you sent me was false and misleading?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Well, I think it's important for everybody here to know that according to the New York Times, you've been aware for quite a while that the response you made was likely false or misleading. Did you ever consider correcting the record for this committee when it was brought to your attention that your letter to me was false and misleading?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to the attorney-client privilege and my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
It's pretty interesting. So now you're following the advice of your legal counsel, but you didn't when they warned you that your letter to me was false and misleading.
Unbelievable. So after refusing to answer questions about potentially false response to Congress, the next question gets even sharper. Jim Jordan asks point blank whether ActBlue weakened its fraud standards to help Democrats.
And we won't keep you here all day, but let me just do one more. Did you weaken your fraud standards to help Democrats?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Yeah. So she pleads the Fifth again, and Jordan follows up with a paper trail. Up next, he lays out the internal documents showing ActBlue relaxed standards while millions of donations showed signs of foreign origin.
Second, the documents the committee obtained did not square with Ms. Wallace-Jones' response to Congress. We had one ActBlue employee who, in an email, said, changes we have made over the last year have already meant we're accepting more fraud. So there was already some fraud. They changed their standards so they were accepting more fraud. ActBlue board member Kimberly Peeler-Allen admitted up to, quote, $38 million in ActBlue contributions in 2024 had signs of a foreign origin.
So he puts the numbers in internal emissions on record. Now Democrats switch to defense mode with Terry Sewell trying to turn a fraud hearing into a race smear against Republicans, of course.
Over and over again, Donald Trump's Department of Justice has harassed black women with bogus lawsuits. We should not forget the harassment of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors Lisa Cook, the harassment of the New York Attorney General Tish James, and their harassment of our colleague, New Jersey Congresswoman LaMonica McIver. So it is not surprising that this Republican-led committee is now attacking ActBlue and its CEO, Ms. Wallace-Jones.
The race card. So after the deflection from Sewell, let's shift to the bigger cleanup in Washington. President Trump now ordering the immediate downsizing of intelligence bureaucracy, with Bill Plute brought in to start firing the deep state. Trump has instructed incoming acting director of national intelligence, Bill Plute, to immediately start firing and downsizing the deep state. Let's go. I have named Bill Plute to be acting director of national intelligence, reverting staff to their home agencies at the same time looking for a permanent ODNI nominee with experience in national security.
Bill Pulte is the acting director of national intelligence. There's been a little bit of a pushback from some Senate Republicans. Why do you think, Mr. President, he's the best person for the job?
Well, he's very smart. He's a person who's got high integrity. He's done a phenomenal job at Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. You probably have $1 trillion in value there. When he took over, it was much less. And I guess I'm responsible for that, too, because everybody wanted me to sell it in my first term for 10% of what it's worth right now. If I would have sold it, we would have lost $900 billion. We would have lost I mean, think of it, it's probably worth $1 trillion. And I was offered, people want me to sell it at $100 billion, a very small percentage of what it's worth now. So, and he built it up a lot, did a great job. And it's an acting position, it's not a permanent. He's not going to be permanent because, I don't think he'd want to be permanent. But he's a very smart guy, and he may find out some things about the rigged elections, et cetera, et cetera. I think he'd like to do it. I think he wants to do it very much, got a lot of energy. But he'll be very good. Again, it's not a permanent position. We're interviewing people right now, but it's somebody just to take it over for a little while.
Does he have the necessary, in your view, Mr. President, the necessary national security experience to take on that position?
Well, I do, and I think he does, actually, because he's smart. Because a lot of national security, I wasn't greatly experienced in national security, and I think I've done a really great job with it. A lot of people would say that I've ended 8 wars, and soon to be a 9th. I hope that works out, too, Frankly, but...
So what does it really mean, taken all together? It means that the fraud crackdown has entered territory Democrats treated as protected ground. For years, the public was told to accept that the experts had it covered, the platforms had safeguards, and the gatekeepers were doing their job. But if a fundraising giant is being asked about foreign origin warning signs, fake name acceptance, and whether fraud standards were loosened to help Democrats, then the issue is much bigger than one executive protecting herself legally. It means the Trump-era demand for auditable systems is spreading, and every transaction should be verifiable. Every institution should be accountable. Every mechanism that touches elections should face scrutiny. That is the real turning point here. The wall between fraud enforcement and political infrastructure starting to crack, and the left looks absolutely terrified. And that panic, it was obvious when Democrats started reaching for the oldest play in the book. Instead of calmly answering the fraud questions, Democrat Representative Terry Sewell tried to turn the hearing into a racial attack, accusing President Trump's Department of Justice of harassing black women with bogus lawsuit. See, that tells you everything. When the facts get dangerous, the deflections get louder. But the American people are done with protected classes, protected systems, and protected machines that never seem to face real scrutiny. If SNAP fraud gets prosecuted, if healthcare fraud gets investigated, if immigration fraud gets exposed, then political donation systems should not get some sacred exemption. That's the common sense standard that President Trump and congressional Republicans are bringing back to Washington. So share this report. Subscribe to Next News. Drop your comment below. Yes or no? Should every political donation platform be fully audited for foreign money, fake identities, and fraud controls? Let's have a conversation. And let's get you connected with the Next News Network. We set up this telephone number just for you. Thousands of patriots have already texted the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. We're cutting out the middleman. We're getting the notifications sent directly to you because I've seen what you have written in the comments. I don't get notifications. I can't find you on YouTube anymore. Well, those days are over. And that is why when you text those words to that number, we will send you a message every night to make sure you get the news that you rely on. And celebrate America 250 with the Next News Network right here at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com or at the merch shelf below this video. Thomas McCullough, our chief White House correspondent, calling in real time. Tom, you are live on the Next News Network. How are you today?
Doing great, Gary. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. What's the good word?
Oh, we just started bombing Iran again. We just launched strikes Iran for the second time today. They've got air raids going all over the country, and they shot down one of our Apache helicopters last night. Did you guys cover that yet?
Yeah, we just tracked that. We got all the details on that story. Apparently the drone went right into the helicopter and lodged between the two pilots. The pilots were able to land the helicopter in the water and were rescued by a drone ship on the water.
Right. How do they walk with with the manhood that's that big. They have a bomb strapped to them. They land a helicopter.
Yeah.
And then they jump out of the helicopter, and then we sent an autonomous ship in to get them. It's pretty. Only in 2026 is that possible.
I know. Welcome to the future of warfare.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
I was just calling to let you know that we're going nuts. There's some B-52s that are on radar that just came off of radar. Some B-2 bombers took off this morning out of Missouri. So.
Oh, really?
We got about 1 hour before there. Yeah, we launched them out of Missouri. The Diego Garcia B-2s went yesterday, and we've got 4 or 5 inbound that should be in there in the next hour or so.
All right. Well, thank you for keeping us posted, and as always, we appreciate everything you're doing out there. With your awareness and your reporting, and hope to talk to you soon.
God bless. Have fun.
All right. Talk to you. Bye-bye. That was Tom McCullough with an update on actions occurring right now in Iran. Okay, so we're going to continue with our reporting, and we will continue tracking all of that. We need to get into the immigration discussion. We're also going to be talking about the screw worm again, the latest developments there. Also, more from Capitol Hill, the SPLC getting exposed, Democrats panicking over their own moral tests, and Bill Gates exposed in the Epstein deposition bombshell today. So lots happening in Washington. But first, let's go to the immigration question and the executive action from the president today. This is the part the media never wants to say out loud. The Trump administration is not just talking about immigration anymore. It's narrowing the fight to one simple question. Yes, a very simple question. It's so simple, so moral, and so devastating for the left that Democrats can barely answer it without exposing themselves. What do you do with people who are in this country illegally and are also a threat to public safety? That is the ground that President Trump and his team want this battle fought on. And after what happened to Laken Riley, they know exactly why. The left wanted this to stay ideological. The White House just made it painfully personal. And the stakes are not abstract. They're academic. They're measured in victims, in grieving parents, and in lives that should still be here. Prosecutors said that Laken Riley fought for 18 minutes before her heart stopped, allegedly at the hands of Jose Ibarra, an illegal alien from Venezuela. 18 minutes. Think about that. That's why Tom Homan said, "I don't want to meet another angel mom or dad." Notice what he's doing. He's not leading with paperwork, asylum claims, or policy jargon. He's leading with public safety, with victims, with the simple idea that if someone is here illegally and a danger to the community, removing that person should not be a partisan fight at all. And that's exactly why Democrats are in trouble. Because once the debate is framed around violent offenders instead of slogans, sanctuary politicians, open border activists, and every official who obstructs ICE suddenly have to defend the indefensible. And that's where this gets very uncomfortable for the left. And before we go further, if you're serious about protecting your family's future, that also means paying attention to your health right now. You've probably seen the clip of Joe Rogan with Mel Gibson talking about people close to them who face serious health struggles and then saw dramatic turnarounds. Rogan brings up light-based therapies working at the cellular level. And Gibson says it plainly, the stuff works. See, that caught my attention. In my own life, I watched something very similar. My wife dealt with constant discomfort and anxiety for a long time. And when we started looking into red light therapy, it opened a door. And that's why I want you to check out Jonathan Otto's special offers at myredlight.com. Or check out the countless interviews that I've done with him right here on this channel. They are eye-opening. So if you've been curious about a practical wellness tool you can use at home, this is worth a look. Use NNN25 for individual items or NNN30 for bundles. Go to myredlight.com today. Now, back to the story, because what Republicans just did in Washington changes this fight in a very big way. See, here's the twist that matters. This is no longer just about what Tom Homan said or even about one horrific case. Republicans have now moved to make this enforcement framework harder for Democrats to sabotage. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said the GOP had no choice after Democrats walked away, demanded more concessions, and let critical agencies sit unfunded for weeks. So the argument is shifting fast, not whether dangerous criminal illegal aliens should be removed, but whether Democrats should be allowed to block the people trying to do it. Here's Tom Homan. I do not want to meet another angel, mom, or dad.
Want to take public safety threats off the street. Let's not forget Lake and Riley and all these other young ladies that were raped and some were murdered by these illegal aliens. I want to prevent I don't want to meet another angel mom or dad. I don't want another angel mom and dad. I want governors and mayors and members of the Hill to agree with me. If you're in the country illegally and you're a public safety threat, this should be a nonpartisan issue. Let's all work together. For instance, in New York City, Rikers Island, when you have an illegal alien booked in Rikers Island, why did they book him in Rikers Island? Because they obviously perceive him as a public safety threat. So if he's a criminal alien, he's a public safety threat, why in the world would you not work with us to not only remove him from the community, remove him from the country, which makes those streets safer? And as far as the local police, Governor Holcomb made a statement, she wants local cops to do local cop stuff. Well, local cops are doing a lot more local cop stuff because they're arresting the same illegal alien over and over and over again because we don't have access to them and remove them the first time. Working with us would put more boots, police officers on the ground to do more work. It's an efficient, it's a clear efficiency.
So Homan laying it out. Removing criminal illegals should be common sense, not a partisan game. And next clip shows exactly why. Prosecutors detail the final 18 minutes of Laken Riley's fight for her life. Let's go back to that moment in that courtroom.
On February 22nd, Jose Ibarra put on a black hat, a hoodie-style jacket, and some black kitchen-style disposable gloves. And he went hunting for females on the University of Georgia's campus. And in his hunt, he encountered 22-year-old Laken Riley on her morning jog. And when Laken Riley refused to be his rape victim, he bashed her skull in with a rock repeatedly. That is what this case is all about. The evidence will show that Laken fought. She fought for her life. She fought for her dignity. And in that fight, she caused this defendant to leave forensic evidence behind. She also marked her killer for the entire world to see. The forensic evidence that he left behind in this fight is his DNA, and only his DNA and Laken's, underneath Laken's right fingernails. He also left behind in a struggle with her over her phone, because the court will hear that she called 911. He left behind his left thumbprint on her iPhone, which was found not far from her body at the crime scene. And it is that forensic evidence alone that would give you enough evidence to find him guilty as charged on the counts in this indictment. But the evidence in this case will come in basically three forms. There'll be forensic evidence, there will be digital evidence, and there will be video evidence. And all three forms of those evidence will point to one person, Jose Ibarra, as the killer of Laken Riley.
A case is the human cost of open border insanity. Now the House has moved to lock in $70 billion for ICE and Border Patrol. So Democrats cannot hold enforcement hostage again. Trump Daily Post Democrats will no longer be able to hold Americans hostage by shutting the government down over ICE and DHS funding.
On this vote, the yeas are 214. The nays are 212. The bill is passed. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
So the House has passed the bill. The vote is in. Republicans push it through by the slimmest margin. Next, Trump puts pen to paper, says DHS will be funded through the end of his term.
This morning, I'm thrilled to sign the Secure America Act to immediately and fully fund the Department of Homeland Security through the end of my term. So we won't have that to be talking about anymore, Lisa.
No, we will not, sir.
We'll give the heroes of ICE and Border Patrol, and that's what they are, they're heroes, what they have to go through to keep us safe, the support and resources they need to defend our borders, protect our homeland, and to keep America safe.
So Trump didn't just sign the bill, he made it clear why it had to happen. Next, he rips Democrats for trying to choke off DHS funding and drag the country back to chaos and crime.
For more than 100 days, congressional Democrats tried to block all funding for the Department of Homeland Security in a reprehensible attempt to throw open the borders of the United States of America. They want to drag us straight back to chaos and crime. The crooked Joe Biden administration, one of the most corrupt administrations, probably the most corrupt ever. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And we're not going to let them do that. I have to say that Washington just had some crime numbers out, and it's the lowest number, best crime numbers we've had, they say, in 58 years. So we went from being a crime-ridden city, our capital, being a crime-ridden place, to being among the safest cities in the country. I'm so happy. And you're big beneficiaries because most of you live here. You hear all the time, the press, the media, and even actually some of the media. A couple of people that I would not suspect, a couple of people truly treat me unfairly, but they came up and they thanked me because it's so much. We have a safe city now.
So after blasting Democrats for blocking enforcement, Trump's team is spelling out the win in plain English. Up next, DHS Secretary Mullen explains how this shuts the left's favorite leverage play against ICE and CBP.
Well, first of all, we're able to pay everybody. This is super exciting for all of us. We have employees at ICE and CBP that have been, well, let's say, in South and Central America that haven't been paid since February. Wow. This is amazing that they were still showing up and working every single day. We had I had other cabinet members that was helping us out in areas that they could. Maybe they would do special assignments for them while they were overseas with the State Department or with different agencies, was helping put some money in their pocket. But the fact that these guys and gals still showed up every single day and worked will tell you that they are truly committed to keeping our homeland and our shores safe every single day. Now that, because thanks to President Trump and his forward thinking, saying, why don't we just go ahead and take it off the table for my entire presidency, fund them fully for 3 years, which means that now we won't have the Democrats threatening to shut down Immigration Custom Enforcement, which is ICE, or shutting down our Custom and Border Protection, which is, protects our borders. They can't do that anymore. They can't use that as a leverage against the American people and against President Trump. So this is a major victory for President Trump and DHS.
A major victory. He says Democrats lost their ability to threaten ICE and Border Patrol. Now John Thune explains why Republicans had no choice but to go around the usual process after Democrats walked away. If he would only do that with the SAVE Act, right?
All these things were agreed upon. The funding for ICE and CBP, there was a bipartisan agreement to do those things. Minneapolis happened. They withdrew. Then they wanted more concessions. The administration sat down with them, offered up a robust package of reforms. They rejected it. And, those agencies were shut down for 50, 60 days, something like that. And so we really had no choice but to use reconciliation. I don't like doing that. That's not the way to fund agencies like this. There's a normal appropriations process that ought to be used for it, but that's what the Democrats left us with. And they seem to be happy with proceeding into an election with this campaign position of we are anti-law enforcement, we are defund the police, we are open borders, we are pro-sanctuary cities. I think that's a losing issue for them, but they don't seem to see it that way.
And they're going to keep losing on that. He says Democrats chose the anti-law enforcement lane and forced Republicans to act. Next, Mike Johnson driving the point home alongside families who paid the price for Biden's open border disaster.
Just a few moments ago, the House Republicans voted to end the Democrat Department of Homeland Security shutdown, once and for all. And we are pleased to tell you that we'll be funding for the next 3 years our border security and immigration enforcement. These are critical agencies and critical functions of the federal government, to state the obvious. And it's rather shocking to us that Democrats wanted none of it. We have 3 full years of funding now, and there is not a Democrat here who voted to support that. But what we've done now by funding it for 3 years is we've taken away their ability to cut that funding, to block that funding, or to take hostage the funding for the remainder of the Trump administration. And again, it's rather sad and shocking to us that it came to this, but that's the time we're in. A partisan vote to fund the enforcement of federal immigration law. Just think of it. But this is good news for everybody except Washington Democrats, okay? They gained absolutely nothing from their reckless crusade to return our country to open borders and unfettered mass migration. House Republicans will always stand with America's law enforcement, and we will always work to ensure that these brave men and women have the resources they need to carry out their responsibilities, to protect.
So Johnson tying the fight directly to victims like Laken Riley, calling out that every Democrat who voted no. Shifting to the media battle now, Will Cain puts a Michigan Democrat on the spot with one question the left never wants to answer.
Answering my question is the entire point. You're pivoting the talking points.
I would like to finish
if you will
my
talk
answer. Let me finish my
the question I asked, we can have an appropriate interview.
Let me finish my answer. $185 billion for ICE. That's $185 billion that are not being spent to improve anything from your infrastructure to your kid's school or to help you afford your health care. Gas is just the tip of the iceberg. So if you do want to talk about ICE, let's talk about the opportunity cost of paying $185 billion into an agency that is currently sowing unrest in New Jersey, just like it did in Minneapolis.
What is the cost to deny citizenship? Mr. Sayed, what is the cost to deny citizenship? What is the cost of violence on the street when you have criminals, murderers, inside that Delaney Hall facility, who you advocated, by the way, in a Facebook post, to empty out the prisons that you think we should put effort into, invest in, and support the idea? I believe the direct quote is, I believe that any idea that gets people out of jail should be supported. And I'm talking about the cost you're imposing on society.
Whether or not this system is actually making people any safer. Ask yourself, do you feel safer now pumping your gas? Do you feel safer now in your neighborhoods? Or do you feel less safe because you've got a $185 billion force that's answerable only to Donald Trump? Ask yourself about whether or not people
I think we know the answer to that question.
Should have felt any safer.
I think we know the answer to that question. I think you asked the parents of Jocelyn Nungaray, the parents of Laken Riley, whether they feel safer under Donald Trump's policies.
I don't think most people feel safer. I'm so sorry. But Will, if you want to have an honest conversation about the issue, we can do that. But if you just want to interrupt me when I'm answering your question, I just don't know what the value is.
Mr. Sayed, I want to have an honest conversation. I just wish you would answer my questions and not pivot to other talking points you want to have. Okay, that is my simple
No, I just think it's important to see this in context.
I told you last week and I told you today, I want to give you appropriate time to have these conversations, but it requires two of us to talk on the same subject to have this conversation. Let's talk for a moment more.
So, that's the real story. President Trump and his team are carving out the strongest, clearest lane in the entire immigration fight. If you're in this country illegally and you're a public safety threat, you should be removed. Period. Homan called it nonpartisan because the White House understands something the left still refuses to admit. Americans may disagree on many parts of immigration policy, but they overwhelmingly support protecting their families from criminals, traffickers, predators, and repeat offenders. That's why the administration keeps elevating angel families, victim stories, and local cooperation battles. This is the implementation phase. The House passed the bill, Republicans locked in years of DHS funding, and President Trump signed the Secure America Act fully funding DHS through the end of his term so Democrats can no longer hold ICE and Border Patrol hostage. This was a massive America First win today, guys. President Trump said he was thrilled to sign the Secure America Act, giving the heroes of ICE and Border Patrol the support and resources they need to defend our borders, protect the homeland, and keep America safe. Secretary Mullen made the point even sharper. Now Democrats can't threaten to shut down ICE or CBP and use American safety as leverage. That's the checkmate. And look how exposed the left is right now. Will Cain confronted a Democrat Senate candidate by invoking the families of Jocelyn Nungaray and Laken Riley. That's where this debate is heading, and Democrats know it. The question now is brutally simple. Should public safety enforcement against criminal illegal aliens be untouchable by partisan games? I want to hear your answer. Yes or no? Drop your comment below. Share this report everywhere. And if you're sick of the media protecting failed open borders ideology, subscribe, turn on your notifications right now. But most importantly, text those 2 words on the screen. Raw feed to 844-840-4963. We are cutting out YouTube's failed notification system. We're going direct to you. Every single night, you'll get a text message with the latest news that we have reported for the day, and you will not be out of the loop any longer. We're taking the message straight to you, right to your phone. So make sure you join the thousands of patriots who've already done that. And celebrate America 250, right? So much winning, right? So much to celebrate. Check out the merch shelf below this video, or just simply go to shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Pick out something you like, and let's keep celebrating these wins. Okay, so that's there. And let's see, we're going to go with, what do we got next coming up here? Brian, I'm going to book that one down for the 8 o'clock drop. And it should be ready for you. Okay, so now we need to talk about what's going on with this. Oh, am I in the wrong? Did I press the wrong button? I must have clicked the wrong. Yes, I did click the wrong button. Okay. We got to get to the screw worm discussion. And what happened on Capitol Hill today. Since you're watching us live on X and on at Next News, as well as at Trump Daily Posts and on YouTube, Rumble, and X, you get to see it here first. So we're going to go ahead and get these all pushed together for you so you can get the news. If you've already subscribed to our SMS system, I'd like to hear from you. Just tap 1 if you're getting those notifications. If you appreciate the notifications, give me some feedback. I want to see what you guys are talking about with respect to those. Super important that we set that up for you guys. It's not cheap, I'll tell you that. It literally costs thousands of dollars to have an SMS system in place. All right, let's get that to 4, noon, 2, and 4. Okay. Oh, yeah, look at you guys. Cool. All right. Okay, let's get into this next topic here. Appreciate it. Yeah, look at you guys getting them. Nice, nice. Are you forwarding the text messages? That's really probably one of the most effective ways to amplify, because it costs me money every single text message that we send out. So if you receive it, you can forward it and expand our reach exponentially. So if you forward it to 5 people, because we've got, I think, almost 2,300 people on that list right now. If everybody sent that to 5 people, I mean, think about the exponential growth right there. Just on that alone. 5 times the reach. 2, 4, 6, 8. That's another 10,000 people that we can reach. Think about that. Okay, Brian, let's get our next topic in the can. Right now, the screwworm story just got a whole lot bigger. What looked like a livestock parasite scare is turning into something far more explosive. A border security indictment of the previous administration. The Trump administration is making it clear that it didn't appear out of nowhere, and it was not some mystery act of nature. Officials are saying the warning signs were visible for years, the threat moved north in plain sight, and the people in charge when Biden was president failed to act. Now Democrats are scrambling to change the subject. The question is no longer just how to stop it. The question is who let it happen. Let's get one thing straight right away. Americans should not panic about the food supply. Secretary Brooke Rollins said plainly that the food supply is completely safe. It's not a virus, and the first calf confirmed in South Texas is already healthy and recovering. That matters because the media loves a fear headline. But the story is not just about a calf. It's about whether America's farm belt was left exposed because Washington refused to treat border chaos like a national security threat. And that is where this gets serious. Rollins says that the New World screwworm was eradicated from the United States back in 1966. It stayed away for decades, and then, after the Darien Gap was breached in 2022 during the Biden-Harris administration, the pest surged through Central America, hit Mexico by 2024, and now for the first time in the modern era, there are cases in Texas again. In other words, the Trump administration is drawing a direct line from open border neglect to agricultural danger on American soil. Now, before we go further, pay attention to this, because government confusion does not stop at the border, and it definitely does not stop when seniors are choosing health care. If you or someone in your family is on Medicare, this directly affects your wallet. You see, Medicare is confusing by design. The mailers, the robocalls, the fine print, the commercials, it's all built to overwhelm you, so you pick a plan and never review it again. That is called the Medicare confusion industrial complex, and seniors are paying for it without even realizing it. Chapter simple by design. One call, one advisor, real help. They look at your doctors, your prescriptions, your priorities, and then compare plans to find what fits. Some people save as much as $1,100 a year. There's no cost to talk with them. Call Chapter at the number you see on your screen. Pause the video, write it down. 910-728-4109, and get clear answers from someone who actually works for you and not the system. Now back to a story where confusion and neglect also carried a very real price for this country. See, here's the twist that the corporate press just won't touch. The most important part of the story is not the bug itself. It is that the Trump administration already knows how to beat it. This country defeated screwworm once before with sterile fly releases, containment, and relentless surveillance. And Rollins says that exact playbook is back, only bigger, faster, and backed by serious money. So if the solution is known, proven, and already underway, then the real debate becomes unavoidable. Why was this allowed to get so close to America again in the first place? So here's Brooke Rollins reassuring us that the food supply is completely safe.
So tell us where we stand and how concerned consumers should be about what's going on with the nation's livestock.
Well, Brian, thank you for having me on. So first, I want to say that the food supply is completely safe, that this is not a disease or a virus. It's a fly that lays an egg in an open wound of an animal, and it can be treated immediately. In fact, the first case that was reported last Wednesday that we confirmed in South Texas, that calf is now healthy, on his way to recovery, and is going to be just fine. So that's the first thing. The second thing I think that's important to understand is where we are in our containment effort on the New World screwworm. We had completely eradicated this back in the 1960s. So a lot of the people who are watching who are from the farm or rural America know this, that in the 1960s it was pushed back into Mexico, then into Central America, and back past the Darien Gap in South America. So for 60 years, this has not been anywhere near our country. But not surprisingly, starting in about 2021, with the open border policies of the last administration and the millions of illegal immigration that was happening through South America, Central America, the screwworm began to move with the people. They were moving with them, their livestock. So in 2021, it hit Central America. 22, 23, it hit Mexico, and in 24, it began to make its way towards Texas. It was shocking when I came into office for the first time in February of last year. The last administration had 5 full-time people working screwworm. Listen, when we found this first case confirmed last Wednesday, we have now over 100 people working full-time preparing for this moment. So at the end of the day, we will solve this with more sterile fly drops, which is a very elaborate way to fix this. They did it in the 60s. We're now bringing it back. Last year, we broke ground. We're going to be able to start pushing back and eradicating in just a couple of months. But until then, the word is food supply is safe, but for our ranchers and anyone around animals, especially in South Texas, look for any kind of wound where a fly could lay an egg. And we're there to treat it with our partners in Texas.
So she says the food supply is safe, ties the outbreak straight to Biden's open border mess. Now watch her shut down Amy Klobuchar after Democrats try to pin this on staffing cuts instead of their own failures.
We discussed early on New World screwworm, and the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service has lost 25% of its staff, including more than 300 employees in veterinary services alone since the administration came in. How do you plan on ensuring that each of these critical threats, such as New World screwworm, receives individualized resources? We're very concerned about this.
Yes, ma'am. As I mentioned, a year and a half ago, there were 10 APHIS employees working full-time, a total of 10 working full-time all in. Now we've got over 120. So we've increased the amount of employees in APHIS working on New World screwworm by 1,000% in the last 14 months. So as you can see, we're prioritizing where the big threats are as we're working to ensure that we're meeting all of the needs across the country.
So after the Senate dodge from Klobuchar, Rollins comes back with the numbers. Here she lays out the crackdown already underway, $1.3 billion deployed, new sterile fly tech, and Texas production facility moving fast.
Screwworm to move north for the first time in 50 years, beginning in 2022 when the Darien Gap was breached, into 2023 when the screwworm began moving at rapid pace up through Central America and hitting Mexico in 2024 under the last administration. We know this development is a serious threat, but it did not catch us off guard. We've established the 20-kilometer movement zone, expedited targeted release of sterile flies in the affected area. We've increased the trapping for flies along the border and ramping up surveillance. But more importantly, I think for this committee is very quickly, Senator Bozeman, I want to talk about over the last year what we deployed. Over $1 billion, $1.3 billion since we walked into the door last January 2025 has been invested and deployed to battle just the New World screwworm. We have been forward-leaning. EPA just approved some new fly technologies we've announced just the last few days, which will significantly increase our ability to battle this through sterile flies. We also broke ground on our Moore air-based sterile fly facility in Texas about 6 months ago. That's a $750 million project. And that also opening up a dispersal facility earlier this year for the first time, and outfitting a facility in Matapa, Mexico that will open this month that will increase our sterile fly production by 100 million flies. That all happened because of what we implemented over a year ago in preparation for this moment. And
so the response is in motion because the threat was ignored. Next, Senator Roger Marshall says the quiet part out loud. The Biden team saw this coming and refused to act. Any day now.
First of all, I think it's important Americans realize there's no threat
to the food supply.
To the food supply.
Correct.
And trying to explain this to people is a little tough, but you and I grew up on ranches, and first of all, no rancher would take an animal with this big, ugly, fleshy wound to the locker plant, first of all.
Correct.
Second of all, even if a human ate, let's say it's a deer. Let's say you shot a deer and you're eating this and it happened to have this screwworm in it, that our own digestive system would destroy that. I think that's important to point out. I think it's important to point out that we saw this coming under the previous administration and they refused to respond. When you let millions of people migrate through Central America this way, we saw the screwworm just come with them, whether it was on their pets or maybe they were bringing livestock. And unfortunately, visiting the border before, I saw so many of these people with open flesh wounds themselves that could have been one way to get it across the border. We saw it happening. And we were down to just basically a male mosquito screwworm fly being sterilized in Panama. But the next step, so we sat on it. We prayed about it. We tried to monitor it. But you also invested money in the laboratory in Mexico as soon as, like within days after you took office, we talked about this. So Take us through that process of what we've done in Mexico. Again, you had a time to touch on it. So the second you get into office, you're on this. So just run us through that again.
Yeah, Senator, thank you. We saw it coming. The fact that it had been out of America since 1966, had been out of Central America and down past the Darien Gap for more than 30, 40 years. I think that that as it began to make its way north, starting in 2021, 2022, it gets into Central America. 2023 gets into South Mexico, and of course 2024 begins to make its way through Mexico. Again, you need about 500 million sterile flies to eradicate. Once it was pushed past the Darien Gap back in the 60s and 70s, people just we stopped making the sterile flies. We got down to the 100 million in Panama. Within a matter of days, we got approval from the president I was sort of shocked that the last USDA really had no plans, hadn't really done anything. Said, we've got to build our own facility in America that will produce between 300 and 400 million flies per week so that we never let this happen again. Understanding that as a radiated facility, it normally takes a couple of years for permitting. Pete Hegseth, God bless him, and our Army Corps of Engineers permitted that facility in just 60 days, I believe, and then we broke ground, contracted within another month or so. So we have shaved years off of that timeline. But in the meantime, the Matapa facility was a fruit fly facility in Mexico that Mexico agreed to let us pay for, let us outfit. We started that last summer, and it is ready this month. That will be another 100 million flies that are coming online. So there's a lot of movement and a lot of money that has been invested to prepare for this moment.
Great.
Continuing right along here. He says it didn't sneak up on anyone. It was watched and waved through under Biden. Rollin drives the point home with the question the regime media won't ask. Why did Biden's USDA do nothing?
I say all of that because what I don't understand, Senator Hoeven, is how did the last USDA watch it coming for years? It broke the gap in 2021, moving up 2022, moving up 2023, spreading, hits Mexico 2024. There's no stopping it. There's not enough sterile flies. Why did no one do anything about it until we walked in the door in January and February of last year? Well, it is a question that I still don't understand, but we're making a lot of progress.
So this is where the Democrats got caught flat-footed. Senator Amy Klobuchar tried to suggest staffing cuts were the problem. Rollins shut that down immediately. A year and a half ago, she said that there were just 10 APHIS employees working full-time on the New World screwworm. Now there are more than 120. That's a 1,000% increase in 14 months under President Trump's team. On top of that, Rollins says the administration has deployed $1.3 billion. Approved new sterile fly technologies, launched a $750 million production facility at Moore Air Base in Texas, expanded dispersal sites, and is opening a facility in Matapa, Mexico, this month to add 100 million sterile flies. That's what competent government looks like. Identify the threat, hit it early, and protect America's farmers and food supply. So the takeaway is rather simple. The food supply is safe. The The infected calf is recovering, the eradication strategy is proven, and the Trump administration is moving aggressively to crush the threat before it spreads. But the political lesson here is even bigger. Farm security is national security. Border security is biosecurity. And when leaders ignore obvious warnings during the previous administration, the damage does not stay at the border. And Brooke Rollins asked the question every American should be asking. How did the former USDA watch this move for years and do nothing until President Trump returned to office? That's not just incompetence. That's a betrayal of ranchers, producers, and families who depend on a secure food system. If you want more reporting the legacy media will not give you, share this video, subscribe, turn on notifications, and let me know in the comments yes or no. Should border failures that threaten America's farms be treated as a national security emergency? Let's have a conversation about this, and let's make sure that you and I stay connected. I've said this before, I'll say it again. We're cutting out the middleman. That is why we set up this secret number just for you. All you got to do is text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. Thousands of patriots are already getting the notifications because we've cut out the middleman completely. I've heard what you guys have said. You're not getting notifications. You can't find us buried under countless CNN videos or MSNBC videos, whatever they call authoritative news on YouTube now. You know, they keep changing the rules. So we're just going to go ahead and cut them out altogether. Just text those words and you will stay connected and get the inside scoop and the news that you depend on to make informed decisions for your family. And let's celebrate the wins. Yes, America 250 is upon us, right around the corner. Make sure you have the gear that says that you're celebrating this great republic on its 250th birthday. Check out shop.nextnewsnetwork.com or simply go to the merch shelf below this video and pick out something you like. Okay, more news is happening, and we're going to get to what happened with the SPLC exposed. Unbelievable. All of these committee hearings today, just, they had no ground game at all. Just deflection after deflection after deflection. So we're going to get to this next story. Make sure you have everything you need. Okay, Brian, you got these things. You're publishing them through. Okay, good. Just want to make sure everything's getting out there. All right, perfect. Thank you, Brian. All right. Right now, the mask is slipping off one of the left's favorite power structures. And the real panic is not even about a Democrat candidate. It's about what happens when Democrats get trapped by the very moral test they've spent years using against everybody else. CNN is now asking Democrats whether they're comfortable defending baggage that they would have called disqualifying if the party label were different. At the same time, the Southern Poverty Law Center is suddenly being hauled into the spotlight and forced to answer for who it targets, who it protects, and who profits. So here's the question. When the self-appointed referees get exposed, who still trusts the scoreboard? See, this matters because for years the left built an entire enforcement machine around symbols, associations, labels, and guilt by proximity. They told the country that words matter. Affiliations matter, maps matter, donor networks matter, and if you're even adjacent to the wrong people, your credibility was gone, canceled. Conservatives lived under that weaponized standard while legacy media and activist groups like the SPLC acted like unelected umpires, deciding who counted as respectable and who got branded extreme. Now that same system is boomeranging back right onto the Democrats. CNN's own questions will tell you everything. Not Republican media, not conservative activists. CNN asking Democrat Senator Chris Coons and Representative Chrissy Houlihan whether they're really comfortable standing by Graham Plantner. That's the tell. Once friendly media starts pressing your side for consistency, the firewall is already cracking. And looming over all of this is the bigger issue. If the SPLC can smear mainstream conservative and Christian groups while failing to apply equal standards elsewhere, then this was never neutral. It was power dressed up as moral authority. And while these institutions keep telling you what to trust, smart Americans are looking for ways to protect themselves before the next big scramble begins. So think about it this way. If you could go back in time and buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? Of course you would. Anyone would. So why are you not buying silver right now? See, the people who recognized oil early didn't just make money. They got ahead of one of the biggest economic shifts in history, and today a similar opportunity is unfolding with silver. You see, silver is more than a precious metal. It's a critical resource used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and the manufacturing economy. See, that means demand is tied to the future. To learn more, visit nextnewsgold.com. From Noble Gold Investments, and for a limited time, you could receive a 1/10 ounce gold coin with a qualifying purchase. Let's get back to the story, because what we're seeing here is not just a campaign problem for Democrats, it's an exposure event for the entire system. And this is the twist they really do not want to discuss. The Plattner story only has power because Democrats trained the country to look at politics this way in the first place. They insisted symbols reveal character. They insisted associations prove intent. They insisted Americans should judge public figures by these markers. Fine. Then apply the rule evenly. But as the hearing unfolded, another problem exploded into view. The same SPLC that spent decades branding conservatives and Christians as suspect is now being accused of enriching itself while attacking the very groups actually standing for faith, family, and civil rights. That's where this goes from awkward to devastating. Dr. Elveda King, tearing into the Southern Poverty Law Center, she's been a guest on this program, tearing into the SPLC during a hearing accusing the organization of fueling racial division in the United States while claiming to fight it. The niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., pointing to allegations referenced in a federal superseding indictment that she says raise serious questions about the group's conduct.
My family legacy reflects the very truth that America is strongest when we recognize our common humanity. My grandmother's family came from the west coast of Africa. My grandfather's family came from Ireland. My mother's family included Cherokee roots. I have spent my entire life living the reality that America is not a collection of competing tribes. America is one people under God. That is why I am troubled by the conduct and messaging of organizations that claim to fight hatred while profiteering from division. Recent allegations reportedly contained in a federal superseding indictment raise serious questions about the Southern Poverty Law Center's activities. Individuals associated with organizations the SPLC itself labeled as extremist or hate groups allegedly received substantial payments over many years. The indictment shares of payments totaling hundreds of thousands and in some cases more than $1 million to sources connected to white supremacist, neo-Nazi, and Ku Klux Klan organizations.
Elveda King accusing SPLC of cashing in on the division while paying people tied to real extremists. Now, Representative Lance Gooden presses the group on why conservatives land on the hate map and while Antifa and Jane's Revenge somehow skate by. He unloads on the SPLC interim CEO Brian Fair after pressing him on why groups like Turning Point and Family Research Council appear on the SPLC's hate map while Antifa and Jane's Revenge do not.
In the Biden-Harris administration, the SPLC included many mainstream conservative groups in their hate map, including Alliance Defending Freedom, Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA, and Family Research Council. To your knowledge, did the SPLC include Antifa, which is an actual domestic terrorist organization in its hate group?
Congressman Gooden, just for the record, the SPLC does not have a domestic terrorist list. I'm not sure what what Dr. King was referring to, what list she's referring to, as I understand, she's on none of our list. We have a list that identifies groups based on the statements that they and their leaders make.
Is Antifa on your hate map?
Again, as I said earlier, Congressman Gooden, it's my understanding that the FBI has said.
So they're not.
Antifa,
Let me ask you this. Has SPLC labeled the radical left group Jane's Revenge as a hate group? This group has publicly taken responsibility for vandalizing and destroying pregnancy resource centers and Catholic churches since May 2022. Have you all designated that on your hate map?
Congressman Gooden, if you've looked at our hate map, you know the criteria we set for designating groups. One designation is when a group expresses, vilifies, demonizes individuals based on immutable characteristics. The second is a group that expresses anti-government conspiracy theories.
So destroying pregnancy resource centers and Catholic churches would not qualify as hate under your definition. You guys are okay with that. But God forbid Turning Point holds a rally. That's considered hate, but destroying a Catholic church or a pregnancy resource is not. Just to be clear, help me understand.
No, Congressman Gooden, the SPLC establishes its own criteria, and any other group can create its own list. Under our criteria, we've designated those groups based on what they've said.
Under your criteria, Turning Point USA, Family Research Council, and other conservative Christian groups are considered hate groups. But Antifa and Jane's Revenge that burns down Catholic churches and pregnancy resource centers, those are not hate groups. It sounds like you're really proud of that process. I'll move on because I frankly think it's disgusting. And you know what? I'd actually ask for you to add me to your hate map. I'd be honored to be on it. It sounds like it'd be in great company.
Oh, and you are, sir? Because Next News Network is on that very same map. Oh, we've been targeted by the SPLC for years and years and years. I'm even Patriot number 9 on their Meet the Patriots expose. Oh, yeah, they did a whole write-up on me. Yes. Those were the days. But now these are the days. So he didn't just call the standard biased, he called it disgusting. Next, Harriet Hageman follows the money and lays out how an $829 million operation used donor cash to target the right while funding actual white supremacists.
Advancing hatred has become quite profitable for the SPLC, as in 2024, the organization had over $829 million in assets, an endowment of approximately $738 million and $129 million in revenue. The bulk of this money comes from the contributions of the SPLC's donors, contributions that the donors thought were made to, quote, confront hate, stand up to injustice, and defend our civil and human rights, end quote. But that isn't the case at all. Instead of confronting hate, standing up for justice, or defending civil and human rights, the SPLC has been funding the exact opposite, with the added bonus of then using their donations to target right-leaning organizations such as the Family Research Council and Turning Point USA, simply because they believe in traditional marriage and the sanctity of the family unit while also opposing abortion. Stated another way, SPLC has been using its funds to attack those very organizations that actually do confront hate, stand for justice, and defend civil and human rights. And the SPLC funded actual Nazis and white supremacists in order to do so.
So after she zeroes in on the money trail, the hearing takes a sharper turn. Congressman Brandon Gill forces the SPLC chief to answer a simple question about a Democrat Senate candidate with a Nazi tattoo.
Do you have an opinion on this tattoo?
I'm not an expert on tattoos. No, I don't.
Okay. I can give you a little bit of background. This is a tattoo on Maine Democrat Senate candidate Grand Plattner's chest. That's the Nazi SS death head tattoo. Do you have any opinions on that?
If it's what you say, if it's a Nazi symbol, we oppose Nazis.
We oppose, I agree, we do oppose Nazis. Do you think if somebody got a Nazi tattoo on their chest that's indicative that they might be a Nazi?
You'd have to ask Mr. Plattner why he has that symbol. I've already said that if it is a symbol of Nazism, we oppose Nazis.
You don't think that that's indicative that perhaps he holds Nazi sentiments?
It may well be.
It may well be. I think, do people who aren't Nazis normally get Nazi tattoos on their chest?
Again, I assume they don't.
You assume they don't? I would assume so, too. I don't know anybody who's not a Nazi. I don't know anybody who has a Nazi tattoo on their chest but is not a Nazi. Do you?
No.
Do you think that somebody who has a Nazi tattoo on their chest should serve in the United States Senate?
I wouldn't vote for that person.
I certainly wouldn't either. Do you think that this should disqualify him politically from serving in the Senate?
Again, I'm not sure where the line of questions is going. The SPLC, if you're asking me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If you're asking me if the SPLC opposes Nazis and Nazi symbols, the answer is yes.
Yep. The SPLC has referred to this same tattoo as a racist skinhead symbol and tattoo. You can see the resemblance there. You wouldn't want somebody with a tattoo like that in the Senate?
No.
No, I wouldn't either.
So the SPLC law boss says he wouldn't vote for a man with Nazi ink on his check. Next, CNN puts the same test to Democrat Senator Chris Coons, and watch how fast the moral clarity disappears.
He said there's nothing out there that's actually concerning. My question to you is his definition of concerning the same as yours? He had a tattoo, which is a Nazi tattoo. A Totenkopf there has definite Nazi symbolism. The New York Times and the Wall Street Journal reported there was physically violent toward an ex-girlfriend. There were all the posts he made. He says that's not concerning. Is that the same view of concerning that you have?
Well, John, that's a judgment the voters of Maine will ultimately make. But of course, I have concerns about his tattoo and the story, about whether he knew what it meant or not and when, and concerns about the allegations. Democrats have held our candidates and our colleagues to high standards, particularly when it comes to any allegations of sexual assault. But I also respect the fact that the voters of Maine, like most states, did not like national party leaders coming in and anointing one candidate over another.
So Coons tries to dodge by saying it's up to Maine voters, even while admitting he had concerns. Meanwhile, Congresswoman Chrissy Houlihan gets the same question on CNN, still says she hopes the candidate wins.
You are a military veteran. You are the daughter and granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. What do you make of his claims, and do you support him as a candidate?
So the good news is that I'm not a resident of Maine, and I don't make that choice for the people of Maine. I am hopeful that his candidacy is successful. My understanding is that he has been resoundingly chosen by the people of Maine for the nominee position. We could have a very long conversation about personal foibles, and we are in a world where we are unfortunately constantly confronted with them. I would love to make people understand that it's important to lead by example, and I do try to do that with my own life every single day. And so I will start by leading by my life, and in the way that I would like to see people be elected with the values that I have.
Yeah, sure. So the usual Democrat sidestep. Principles for Republicans, excuses for their own side, then President Trump cuts through the spin in his own unmistakable way.
Because he's just an outright pig. He's like a pig. I watched him a couple of times. He's like a pig. That's what he reminds me of. I come up with good names for people. I don't want to stick him with that one, although I think pigs would be very upset about it.
Pigs would be very upset about it. So at the hearing, Dr. Elvira King delivered the moral gut punch. She said America is not a collection of competing tribes, but one people under God. And she accused groups claiming to fight hate of profiteering from division. Then Representative Lance Gooden hammered the SPLC over why Turning Point USA and the Family Research Council land on its hate map Well, Antifa and Jane's Revenge somehow escaped the label. Representative Harriet Hagman took it further, citing massive SPLC assets and alleging donor money was used to attack mainstream conservative organizations instead of confronting real hate. See, that's the core revelation. The fight is no longer just over a candidate or a symbol. It's over whether these institutions ever deserve the power to define extremism in the first place. And right now, that power looks weaker than ever. So President Trump, he spent years calling out the corruption, the double standards, and the arrogance of institutions that thought they could smear half of the country and never answer for it. Now, under the Trump administration, with Republicans controlling Congress, those institutions are finally being dragged into the light. And Americans are getting a clear look at how selective outrage really works. That's why this story matters, not because Democrats found one messy candidate, not because the media discovered standards overnight. It matters because the old gatekeepers are losing control over who gets labeled dangerous and who gets protected and who gets silenced. Once people stop trusting the referees, the whole rigged game starts to fall apart. So I want to hear from you. Should the SPLC still be treated as a credible authority on hate and extremism? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments and share this report everywhere. And if you're sick of the hypocrisy, subscribe to Next News right now for more America First coverage. But better yet, let's cut out the middleman, shall we? And that's exactly what I did when I set up this telephone number just for you. I saw what you guys were saying in the comments. Oh no, I'm not seeing your notifications. You're not showing up in my feeds. Well, just text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. Problem solved. Message from me direct to you. We don't need to wait for YouTube's or notifications or algorithms. No. One text message a night. You're going to get the news that you deserve and the news you rely on so we can stay connected. All right, and let's celebrate, right? America 250, right around the corner. Hit shop.nextnewsnetwork.com or the merch shelf below this video. Pick out something you like, and let's celebrate together. All right. Let's see where we're at now. Okay. Just gotta send a message then. Okay. Oh yes, we're going to the Bill Gates story. Oh yeah, he showed up today on Capitol Hill. Hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Oh, the reckoning is upon us. All right, let's go and check out what's going on there. I'm ready when you are, Brian. Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. It wasn't just another headline circus around Jeffrey Epstein. It was something much bigger. Bill Gates, one of the most protected figures in the global elite club, walked into a closed-door House Oversight deposition, and suddenly the question is no longer whether Epstein had powerful friends. We already know that. The question is why so many influential people kept meeting with him, emailing him, and working around him after his crimes were public. Under President Trump's Justice Department, more of these files are finally seeing daylight, and now Congress is pushing higher up the chain. So here's the real question tonight. Is this where elite accountability finally starts? See, House Oversight Chairman James Comer made it clear before Gates went in, the committee wants answers about Gates' relationship with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, what he saw, what he knew, and why those connections continued. Comer also revealed something else that should get every American's attention. Based on testimony from yesterday and conversations with Epstein's survivors, he now wants Alan Dershowitz brought in as well. That tells you the investigation's not shrinking, it's only widening. And when Gates arrived, what did he do? He gave a polished line about being there voluntarily and wanting justice for victims. Fine, sure. But when reporters asked the obvious question, why did you keep meeting with Epstein after his conviction, Gates went silent. 4 hours behind closed doors, no public answers on the way in. And a political class that for years acted like the public had no right to ask. Well, that era is ending. The Trump administration has helped create an accountability environment where these elites are finally being forced to explain their decisions, not just hide behind PR handlers and billion-dollar foundations. As we talk about institutions people no longer trust, it reminds me why more Americans are looking for solutions they can actually see and feel in their own lives. You've probably seen the clip of Joe Rogan with Mel Gibson talking about people close to them who face serious health struggles and then saw dramatic turnarounds. Rogan mentions light-based therapies working at the cellular level. Gibson says that plainly the stuff works. And that caught my attention. In my own life, I watched something similar with my wife, who dealt with constant discomfort and anxiety for far too long. And that's why I want you to check out Red Light Therapy from Jonathan Otto at myredlight.com. It's a practical tool many Americans are turning to as they take ownership of their health instead of waiting on broken systems. Visit myredlight.com, use NNN25 for individual items or NNN30 for bundles. Take a look and see if it's right for you and your family. Now back to a story that's really about whether the powerful ever face the same scrutiny as everyone else. Because here's the part the establishment media still does not want to say plainly. Bill Gates is not important here just because he's rich. He matters because he sits right at the crossroads of technology, philanthropy, public health, and political influence. That's why the deposition matters. Investigators are no longer just tracing Epstein's crimes, they are tracing elite decision-making after Epstein's criminal history was already known. And once you understand that, every ignored question, every carefully worded answer, and every closed-door witness suddenly means a lot more. We go now to James Comer, who had some remarks before the deposition in the Epstein file investigation.
All right, well, thank you all for being here. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. We are about to begin the interview with Bill Gates. This will be our 15th interview. There are a couple of things I want to mention about yesterday. Based on the testimony from Ms. Groff, as well as a meeting that I had afterwards with several of the Epstein survivors, I am going to ask Alan Dershowitz to come in. We will have questions for him. We're going to give him an opportunity to come in and answer several questions that arose yesterday based on Ms. Groff's testimony and some things that some of the Epstein survivors said. So we're proceeding along. Hopefully this interview today will be productive and help us learn more and help us in our investigation as we move forward. I'll be happy to answer a couple of questions.
Chairman, what are you expecting to ask Bill Gates today? What information are you hoping to get from him?
Well, the same information I think other members of Congress have said. We just want to know about his relationship with Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell. What did he see? Did he know what was going on? Was he involved in any of this? So I'm sure as we ask questions, more questions will arise. I will say this, no one's accusing Bill Gates of any wrongdoing, and I certainly appreciate him coming in voluntarily.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So clearly the investigation is still ongoing, given you're now asking Mr. Dershowitz to come in. Are there any plans to formally ask Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche to come in?
I'm communicating with the Department of Justice. I would like for Todd Blanche to come in July. Well, he's got, I think we all know he has a big confirmation coming up. So, but I've always wanted Blanche to come in. Now, let me be very clear. Todd Blanche came in a month ago. He came in with Pam Bondi to answer questions from the Oversight Committee, and the Democrats stormed out and ran to you all to try to be the first to get on MSNBC and talk about their outrage. What a missed opportunity for the Democrats. But Todd Blanche answered questions that Republicans had for several hours, as did Ms. Bondi. But we brought Miss Bondi back in, and we're working to bring Todd Blanche in.
Would it be legitimate
overall? There were emails in the files relating to Bill Gates, a draft email alleging there was some kind of a request to get medication for STDs type thing. Is there potential for criminal wrongdoing there, asking someone to procure a medication that may not otherwise be available?
I don't know about that, but that email will be addressed in the first hour of questioning, I can assure you. The majority will have 1 hour of questioning, the minority will have a 1 hour questioning. I hope that you all review the transcripts of all these interviews that we do and look at the depth of the questions that the Republicans ask versus the depth of the questions that the Democrats ask. Yesterday, right off the bat, the Democrats asked questions about Mar-a-Lago and Donald Trump, and this is about the survivors of Epstein and Maxwell. This is about trying to figure out how the government failed, and this goes back several administrations, several attorneys general. This has definitely been a failure in justice. We're trying to get the truth to the American people, and we're trying to provide some type of justice for the survivors. So I really hope that you all are reviewing the transcripts, because it's inevitable that after every interview, the Democrats march out here, actually they tiptoe out here, and they go and tell you all this stuff. They're outraged that Lutnick said or that Bondi said. Well, then the transcript comes out and no one ever questions on it. It's real frustrating, because the Democrats have been nothing but dead weight in this investigation. But I feel like we've accomplished a lot. We're bringing people in.
So he says Republicans want answers on Gates, Epstein, Maxwell, and the eyebrow-raising email. Now Gates steps up himself for a short statement before the hearing behind closed doors.
What you stop to tell me something? Gotta move back.
Stand here.
Yes, gotta move back.
All right, please move back.
I'm glad to be here voluntarily to testify, to help with the committee's work. I'll start with an opening statement in the hearing room. I hope my testimony is helpful to the important work of the committee to find justice for the victims. Thank you.
Did Epstein ever introduce you to any woman? Do you regret your friendship with Jeffrey Epstein?
So, kept it brief and voluntary on the way in, but when reporters pressed him on why he kept meeting Epstein after the conviction, the cameras caught what he didn't say.
Well, Bill Gates has spent the better part of 4 hours in this hearing room behind me speaking with the House Oversight Committee about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. On his way in this morning, he refused to answer any questions from us. Mr. Gates, why did you meet with Jeffrey Epstein after his conviction? What did you guys talk about?
So after 4 hours behind closed doors and silence in the hallway, Republicans started giving their read on how Gates handled the heat. Congressman Tim Burchett says the answers were cautious, coached, and raised even more questions.
What do you need? What do y'all want to ask me? Anything? I'm just trying to get to the heart of his relationship his relationship with Epstein and the business association or what. I think there's some questions that alluded to some blackmail type things. What was going on? What do you need? What do y'all want to ask me? Anything? I'm just trying to get to the heart of his relationship his relationship with Epstein and the business association or what. I think there's some questions that alluded to some blackmail type things. What was going on there? Pretty clear to me, though, that Epstein was a friend collector. He just liked to have people around him that were big deal and get his picture made with them and hang out with them, and I think that's how he reeled them in. Mr. Gates is very couched in his replies, and I mean, he's very well coached, too. He's got great attorneys, I assume. He's probably made more money in interest more than all of us will make in a year. He looked pretty downtrodden for a guy worth, several, billions or whatever. I mean, he's like Oprah times 20, I think. I'm not sure. He did look pretty worn down and stressed, but if I was his attorneys, that's exactly how I would coach him to be in front of this group. Good job yesterday at the UFO press conference, dude.
Why was this a closed-door hearing?
I don't know, ma'am. That's above my pay grade. I'm big about transparency. I always just say let it be wide open, but that seems to be something both parties agree on, and that's the way we go. And we did that with the Clintons as well. I think the Clintons said that they weren't going to come in unless we did that, which I don't know how you get past a subpoena. I'm not really sure how that works, but I guess if you're a big deal, you can do more than the rest of us could.
One of your colleagues said that Gates was kind of combative.
What would you be, ma'am? I guess if you're getting drug out here, all your dirty laundry. Let's be honest, I don't think he's that good of a person.
So Burchett says Gates look stressed and heavily lawyered up, which only fuels demand for transparency. Next we get the broader case laid out on air. Repeated meetings, email contacts, and questions about travel even after Epstein was already a convicted sex offender.
Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates testifies before the House Oversight Committee in a closed-door setting as part of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. This comes in response to files released by the DOJ that showed that Gates and Epstein met multiple times and that many of the tech billionaire's advisors were in contact with Epstein up until his death in 2019. Gates has denied any knowledge of Epstein's crimes and says he never traveled to Epstein Island.
That's the public summary. The corporate media will air, but the deeper concern is in the paper trail, including a 2013 grant email chain appears to show Epstein inserting himself into Gates Foundation business he had no official role in. The Epstein files released by President Trump's Justice Department revealed a disturbing chain of emails dating back to 2013. Epstein quietly took control of a multi-million-dollar grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
DOJ file EFTA 00972-411, grant correspondence, IPI to the Gates Foundation. October 2013, IPI's Director of Finance writes to Amy Carter at the Gates Foundation. A routine grant request, operating support, project funding, standard institutional correspondence. Rudd Larson forwarded the entire email chain to Jeffrey Epstein. The ask, quote, IPI requests general operating support in the range of $1 to $2.5 million and project support of $2.5 to $4 million. Epstein's response 8 days later, quote, do not send anything else, anything, without letting me see it before it goes, not after. Please. The idea that there is no accounting after months will present a problem. This is not a passive recipient. Epstein was demanding pre-approval of IPI's communications with the Gates Foundation. He was asserting editorial control over the grant relationship itself. A convicted sex offender, gatekeeping a multi-million-dollar philanthropic channel. 2 weeks later, the Gates Foundation signed a grant agreement with IPI for $2.5 million. General operating support. The same year, Epstein lent Rudd Larson $130,000 in a personal loan. Epstein's will later left $10 million to Rudd Larson's children. $2.5 million from Gates to IPI, $130,000 from Epstein to Rudd Larson, $10 million in the will. And Epstein demanded to approve every word that IPI sent to the Gates Foundation. He held no position at either organization.
So the grant documents raise a bigger question than bad judgment. What exactly was Epstein helping coordinate around Gates' orbit next? The next clip pushes that argument even further, tying old emails to pandemic simulations, vaccine funding, and mRNA planning.
This whole thing appears to have been planned. The Epstein files came out recently, and, Epstein, Gates, JP Morgan, all these individuals were working on vaccine profiteering constructs back starting in 2013. They were discussing pandemic simulations. DARPA, the Depth P3 program in about 2012, that project was basically to develop pandemic countermeasures using messenger RNA. And then we got up to 2019 with Bill Gates, Gates Foundation, John Hopkins, Event 201.
Yeah.
They were doing a pandemic simulation 2 months before the pandemic began with all of the corporation heads, CEOs, basically to say, this is what
the
we're going to do.
deputy of the CIA was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And of course, we're seeing that again with the tick releases and Ebola vaccines. But that claim blows past social ties and into motive, money, and influence. But before any of that, Gates was already struggling to explain himself on national television, delivering one of the coldest answers you'll ever hear when asked what lesson came from the Epstein meetings. He was being interviewed about Epstein on TV, gave the weirdest answer.
At that time, that you had a number of meetings with Jeffrey Epstein, who, when you met him 10 years ago, he was convicted of soliciting prostitution from minors. What did you know about him when you were meeting with him, as you've said yourself, in the hopes of raising money?
I had dinners with him. I regret doing that. He had relationships with people he said, would give to global health, which is a interest I have. Not nearly enough philanthropy goes in that direction. Those meetings were a mistake. They didn't result in what he purported, and I cut them off. That goes back a long time ago now. So there's nothing new on that.
It was reported that you continued to meet with him over several years, and that, in other words, a number of meetings. What did you do when you found out about his background?
Well, I've said I regretted having those dinners, and there's absolutely nothing new on that.
Is there a lesson for you, for anyone else looking at this?
Well, he's dead, so in general, you always have to be careful. I'm very proud of what we've done in philanthropy. Very proud of the work of the foundation. That's what I get up every day and focus on.
But he's dead. But he's dead, and you got to be careful. Yeah. What does that tell you? Right? See, this is the real turning point. The Epstein story is moving from a scandal about one monster into an examination of how the ruling class operates. Why do people keep taking meetings? Why keep the emails going? Why maintain any relationship at all after the warning signs were impossible to miss? We also now have renewed scrutiny over files showing Epstein inserted himself into grant communications involving the Gates Foundation. Not as some passive bystander, but as someone apparently trying to exercise control. Add in Gates' old public comments, including that bizarre line that, well, he's dead. And you start to see the deeper issue. It's not only about Epstein. It's about judgment, access, influence, and whether America will finally demand one standard for everyone, including billionaires and their friends. So let's just keep this simple, shall we? The American people are just tired of watching one set of rules for the connected and another set for everybody else. And that's why the story still matters. Not because the public needs another reminder that Epstein was evil. We know that. What the country wants now is accountability for the people who kept orbiting him, benefiting from access, or pretending not to notice what was right in front of them. And yes, some side claims tied to pandemics and mRNA are circulating hard online, and they're separate claims. But it's not just outrage. The core issue here is already serious enough. Known elite figures continued engaging with a convicted sex offender, and now the questions are finally catching up. If you believe every name, every meeting, every communication should be fully exposed, share this report right now. Comment below with one word: transparency. Now, do you believe that Bill Gates told the full truth to Congress? Yes or no? If you want more America First reporting that actually goes where the corporate press refuses to go, subscribe and stay with us. But text those words "raw feed" to 844-840-4963. We're cutting out the middleman. We're going direct to you. Thousands of patriots have already texted those words, and they're getting the inside scoop from me directly. They're getting the notifications that YouTube's supposed to send you, but never does. So make sure you do that before you leave this video. And also celebrate America 250 with the Next News Network. check out the Next News merch shelf below this video or shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Pick up something you like, and let's celebrate America together. All right, folks, that's a wrap. Thank you for joining us yet again on another Between the Headlines at the Next News Network, at our X profile at Next News, as well alongside our streaming partner, Trump Daily Post. Make sure you follow us on X. Make sure you follow Trump Daily Post. But most importantly, our flagship on YouTube, where we have over 2 billion views since we launched this channel. Over 2 million followers there. And seriously, text raw feed to that number. I'm telling you, 844-840-4963. I don't just say it to say it. I say it because that's like our lifeline. And it's been a real struggle the way the algorithm has been treating us lately. So we're just like, forget it. Let's just send them text messages. Let's just go direct. So make sure you do that. And we'll see you tomorrow with more news. We'll have our White House briefing. We'll be tracking all the news for you, bringing you the latest in prime time. And as always, these videos that we've created here, the stream, the segments from this report, this broadcast, are extracted and uploaded to our YouTube channel, to our Next News X account, as well as on Trump Daily Post. That's where you'll find all this stuff. But they will be on Next News X first, as well as Trump Daily Post, and then we scheduled them out on YouTube because it's complicated, the way that system works over there. So you can get it all wherever your preferred platform is. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. I love you guys. Great to see you. God bless you.